It's Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined once again by the WBA featherweight champion of the world, Leigh Wood. Leigh, how you doing?
Good, thanks, mate. Usual stuff in camp. Very tired, a little hungry, missing home, but all be worth it.
Well, talking of home, you're preparing for a February the 18th main event at home in Nottingham against the dangerous Mauricio Lara. Fight postponed from back in September. How excited are you to have a date in the books after your injury?
Yeah, it's been a long time since my last fight. By the time I fight, we come up to a year, so I'm very excited. This is what I make all these sacrifices for, um, to fight for fight night, all for fight night. So we're finally good to get it all to pay off and get it to come together, ready to do some damage, should we say?
And taking you back to last year and the Mick Conlan fight, I saw at the end of 2022, it was figuring in a lot of fight of the year lists, knockout of the year lists as well, which, as the person who dished out the knockout rather than suffered it, must be pretty good for you. What did you make of that? Were you quite appreciative of the regard in which the fight's been held?
Yeah, I mean, it was a great fight, and it takes two. So, congratulations. Well, a big shout out to Mick as well, because it just take two to have a fantastic fight, and what a fight it was. It lived up to the expectations, if not more. It was being built up a big fight. It got the good build up. It was flying over to Ireland for the press conference, back to Nottingham, and the press conference of the week. A lot of things were said. There was that tension and that bit of needle. It was everything for a great fight, and at the time, I think boxing really did need it. So yeah, it was good to get a fight of the year and knockout of the year on some pages as well. Brutal finish. I'm glad I was on the right end of it.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that he's gone on to have a good couple of wins, still at featherweight, of course, but yeah, against reputable opposition, is that even better for you in that, he's still performing really well and you defeated him?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I was talking about this with someone else, and they said, "Do you think you get credit for the Kanzu win?"
Hmm.
And I said, "Probably not yet until I keep getting these wins and keep proving people wrong and keep winning when I'm not expected to win. Then I'll probably get more credit. But at the minute, they'll probably say, oh, well, it wasn't as good as we thought it was. Or, it didn't turn up that night. It was inactive too long or whatever. There's always a reason. But as you keep getting these wins, eventually people will look back and go and stand back and say, do you know what? He finds a way to win, and he's better than we thought he was."
And we spoke in July, I think it was, and the purse bid split had just been announced by the WBA for you fighting then super champion Leo Santa Cruz. And you were pretty disgusted with the 75-25 ordered split in his favour, which I can completely understand. Um, and then thoughts when it was clear that fight wasn't viable financially, people were thinking, what are you going to do next? And it seemed like some of the more lucrative options, and you can tell us about this in a minute, were maybe Josh Warrington. I don't know if it would have been a unification at the time or not. Maybe a Conlan rematch. But you opted to go for Mauricio Lara, which from the outside seems like high risk, quite low reward type of fight. Just tell us the process behind coming to that opponent.
um, you know, at the time, like you said, I wanted the Warrington fight, but he was um, he was unavailable because he had his mandatory to fight Lopez, so he had to fight Lopez, and you know that IBF are quite strict with
Mm.
the rulings. So in my eyes, it was either can't get Warrington, so get the man that beat him, and that's Lara. That was at the time. Obviously, the fight happened. I got the injury close to the fight. So it's kind of, if I don't fight him again, it looks like I'm avoiding him or ducking him, even though it was a voluntary defense and I picked to fight him. It
Yeah.
still looks that way. So yeah, I'm coming to right that wrong and change what everyone thinks would have happened and show them what will happen. Um, and also, it seems like a high risk, low reward when really it's style wise, it's probably a medium low risk, and high reward.
Why is it a high reward? How will
Well,
you be in a better position after beating him than you are now?
well, you got the only man that stopped Warrington. Absolutely did a number on him. He's got a really good ranking with the Ring magazine,
Hmm,
and financially as well. It's my biggest payday to date.
that's good.
Which a lot of people would be surprised that if I told them how much I was getting paid. But like I said, it's not about the money. It's not really even about the belts. For me, it's beating these good kids, getting these scalps, and proving how good I am, and getting the recognition finally.
And you said earlier about being kind of underrated, despite these great wins that you're putting together. When the Lara fight was first announced for September, there was a lot of criticism, especially on social media, about, is it the right move, that kind of thing. It seemed a bit strange because we're supposed to praise fighters for, taking risks and that kind of thing. And were
Yeah,
you at all surprised that it was more kind of, oh, why is he doing this? This is crazy, that kind of thing.
yeah. Like of some people, it was like, what an idiot. Like, are you a boxing fan or like? It's when it suits them. When it suits them, all of a sudden everyone's a manager.
Yeah.
Then the critics, then the boxing experts, then I would have done this, should have done that. But stylistically, Mauricio Lara against Josh Warrington is a bad style matchup. No matter how many times they fight, a similar thing would happen unless Josh knew why it was happening.
Mm.
With me, it's a good style matchup. So I'm trying to be careful not give too much away, but it
Sure.
suits me a lot better than my last fight, which was a poor style matchup for me. Um, so yeah, and you can't see that from the outside. And to be honest, I wouldn't have seen that from the outside 3, 4 years ago. But knowing what I know now, and being shown, and as I'm always learning as well, he suits me, and I'm going to exploit him and show. I'm going to make it look um, so clear cut that people might even say he didn't turn up or whatever. There was something said, I'm sure, but I'm confident I'm getting the win. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but it's World Championship boxing. It's never easy, but I'm going to make it look as clear cut as I can and get the job done.
And it was all set for September, and then you suffered a bicep injury in sparring in preparation for it. Just tell us about excuse me, how that happened and what your initial reaction was. Like, did you know that you torn it immediately?
Um, no, I just thought I pulled it. I did it in sparring, and I managed to finish the spar. I think it was an 8 round spar. And I was doing some drills on the bag, and I just couldn't do the drills. I couldn't hold my arm up. Rested it for about 3 days till my next spar. Um, Started sparring, it felt all right, and then 3 or 4 rounds in, it got worse and worse. And by the end of the spar, I couldn't hold my mind up. Even at that point, I tried again to spar. I would give it a good 4 or 5 days rest. I tried again, and I went over to spar, and I couldn't even jab. A few rounds in, couldn't even jab. It's like having one arm. It's like because the tear was right next to, I think it was right next to a nerve or something on my arm. So as soon as that inflamed, it pushed that, and yeah, very frustrating. It needed probably 2 or 3 weeks complete rest, and
Hmm.
that close to the fight, you just can't do it.
How did it actually happen? Do you know? Did you like overextend on a
Yeah,
shot,
I
or did
think
you
it was.
hit something? Or
Yeah, I think it was a left hook, and I just went a bit too wide. It must have just ripped, torn. Um, Very frustrating. I've not had that before. But that was the same arm that I had. I torn completely ruptured the tendon on that arm. And the bicep shot my arm in 2014, so that got pulled back down. So that arm is a little bit tighter than my other one, but it's never done it before. Touch wood, it won't do it again. It's just one of the things, fighters train very high intensity, and it's a very physical sport. So you get niggles and injuries in camp all the time. Um, Most of the time, you just crack on because that's what you do. Like even the Conlan camp, my shoulder was terrible, but you just crack on. But you have to draw the line when you've got one arm. So
so you didn't have to have surgery or anything. It was more just complete rest for a while.
yeah, just rest really, and a little bit of rehab for a couple of weeks just to make sure I didn't come back because the tear, it's only a small tear, it heals itself, but when it knits together pretty fast, it's quite delicate. So you have to build that strength up. Otherwise, if you don't build it up and you think, oh, it feels fine, I'll use it. it's susceptible to be torn again. So as soon as it felt good, then I had to do loads of rehab work, a little bit of strength for a couple of weeks, for 2.5, 3 weeks, and then I was back punching, and it's been fine since. Like I said,
Brilliant.
touch wood.
Yeah. And you found out during your time off, if you like, that Leo Santa Cruz had relinquished the super title, and you're now the only WBA featherweight champion. How did you kind of reflect on that? Were you happy, or was it more, he's wasted all this time for no reason? What was your emotions?
Yeah, I mean, he was the reason really that I've only had one fight in the last year, because that was all getting sorted out. So a little frustrated, but at the same time, it's sorted out now. It don't mean anything to me really. It's more the people that follow the sport and the online trolls and everyone else who had an opinion. When I won the world title in Eddie's back garden, that was when I was world champion in my eyes. I was the only active featherweight. Um, Even at the time, I was ready to sort out the situation with Leo Santa Cruz, and they just was reluctant to do it. So finally, it's been sorted out. I don't feel any different, but it does benefit me making bigger fights, unifying, and that kind of thing, which is always a good thing.
Now, were you disappointed when you saw Josh Warrington lose his title to Luis Alberto Lopez? Because you could still fight him, of course, but then it's a defense for you rather than a unification.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have another belt on the line for that fight. But if that fight happens, it's still a big fight. It's still two cities, two footballing cities, Forest and Leeds. It's still massive. Um, but it didn't have to happen. I've got options. But I do think to tick that box, which I've wanted to do for so long, and headline the City Ground, um, he's more than likely to be the opponent.
Mm.
If Conlan wins, if he fights for world title and wins, which I'm not sure if it's even been made yet, but if he does that, then that is another option. That would be a massive fight, and why not at the City Ground? Um, Another option probably would be Lopez, if he's still got the title. Um, but I think ideally for the atmosphere, I still think Warrington is the front runner, and he's had a great career. I'd love to give him an opportunity. Um, he's got some great scalps on his record, like
Mm.
Frampton and Galahad, Selby. They have massive names on his record. So for me to beat him, it's a good win as well. So it works both ways.
And to get to that, first you've got to go through Lara. And while you've said style-wise he suits you, how do you rate him as a fighter, especially compared to some of your previous opponents?
Yeah, he's very reckless, very explosive. Um, we haven't really seen him be hit back yet by someone that can hit harder than him. Um, he is a big puncher, but I think it becomes more of speed and effort with him than actual punch power. He puts a lot into to deliver that power. But like I said, he's fast and explosive. Yeah, you got to rate him. You got to rate him. If you don't know what you're doing, you're in for an hard night. Um, at the same time, if you look at the fundamentals of boxing and everything that goes around it, pace, um, you know, just basic footwork, um, not leaving entries, bringing your hands back, all these little things he's very poor at. But like I said, he is dangerous, and I need to be on it.
Now, it said in the press release about the fight that you're looking to unify belts in 2023. How likely is it that your mandatory is going to get called anytime soon? Because as you pointed out, this is a voluntary defense.
Yeah, I mean, the Conlan fight was a mandatory fight.
Mm.
So I've got this voluntary. I'm not sure if I'll be able to have another one after, but I should be allowed to have unification fight. But like I said, we'll see what happens. I got messed around for a long time, so I'm sure I get a little bit of grace the first half of this year. Um, but we'll see what happens. I'm not sure who my manager is. It might be Tommy Ward, is it? But I
Yeah,
think he's got to
Tommy
fight. I think
Bullshit.
he's got to fight someone. I think, um, or he was going to fight someone for the like a final eliminator. I'm not too sure. But yeah, look, it is what it is. If I have to fight a mandatory, I'll fight. I'd like to be in a unification fight. I'd like to be in this big fight after this fight at the City Ground, because that is my last box that I want to tick, and then everything else is a bonus.
So if the next fight after this one, was a choice between a defence against Warrington at the City Ground or a unification fight against, I don't know, Ray Vargas or one of the other champions out in the US, which one would you choose?
You don't need to ask me that because it'll be the City Ground, without a doubt.
Because that's one off the bucket list, right?
Yeah, I mean, I said it, yeah, a few years ago. They're the three things I want to achieve in my career, and I'm not selling it short. I'm not changing my mind. They're the things I want to do. It'll be a special night. The atmosphere alone would be incredible. Um, and I don't see myself losing, so I don't think, oh, well, that will be my last fight. So there's always them things to do after that.
When you've had kind of defeats earlier in your career, I think obviously Gavin McDonald was the first one. Do you look back on that now and think, wow, I'm really here? Or is it more you always believed you would get here?
In my head, yeah, but obviously everyone else around me, they all doubt it. But yeah, it's like when I got beat, I don't see it as, well, I'm not good enough. I see it as, well, I've got to learn. It's like no fight really. Like they're not superhuman. They just do things well or do what suits them well. What they can get the best out of themselves. What suits their body, their mechanics, their style, and they do it well. Not every world champion in the history of boxing boxes the same, and that's the beauty of boxing. And I find that I have now find what suits me, and I'm very fortunate to have my camp and my team around me, which I think are ahead of a lot of gyms in the world, not just the UK, and how they work. And that's why I keep getting these wins, where the bookers have had me a massive underdog because of how they operate. And I think it's just going to keep happening as well, especially for this fight. So yeah, although it's took a long time to get here, um, it is surreal sometimes. But at the same time, I've worked my ass off since I turned pro in 2011. I've dedicated a lot of my life. I lived away from home, like I'm down in Essex now, still away from my kids and my family. So I've earned it, probably the hardest way.
And although you're giving the credit there, and rightly so, to Ben Davison, Barry Smith, Lee Wiley, all the team, surely a lot of it is also about how coachable you are, how open you are to new ideas and to being taught stuff.
Yeah, you need to be like a sponge. Lee Wiley's said in the past, it's almost amazing how I'm able to adapt at my age. So I'm able to like learn new things and do new things and change my style and do stuff at this age, which is a good asset. You're never done learning, and you can teach old dogs new tricks. Um, I think that is one of the biggest attributes of mine, to pick things up and say, right, for this fight, we need to do this. We need to cut this out. We need to push that in. We need to change this a little bit. You can't do this. If you do this, this will happen. If you do that, that'll happen. I'm like, nod. I don't get it right straight away, but I'm so strict and determined to do it that I'll just keep drilling it, keep drilling it. Is it right? No, okay, keep drilling it. Is it right? We're getting there. We're getting there. And Ben as well, he's relentless. He's so obsessed. Like if he'll look at me, look at something I'm doing, it's not 100% right. He'll say, you can do this better. He'll try a different way of teaching me it. If that didn't work, he'll try a different way of teaching me it. Then he'll say, well, maybe relax or have this mindset when you drill this. He's such a good coach, and we just fit together really well as Lee Wiley as well. I'm
And you,
Barry. Barry plays this part.
yeah, yeah, we'll name check them all. Don't worry. I think we both have now, so it's all good. But yeah, like you said about the kind of consistent drilling over those things. I don't think all fighters out there are that able to adapt. Like you're saying, Lee Wiley said, you've got this unique ability. I think that's probably true because a lot of fighters go back to what they know, especially in times of pressure. And in the Conlan fight, you didn't necessarily do that. You closed the gap and you did what you had to do.
So the actual, it's quite funny. So the actual sequence, you could say, when I knocked Conlan out through the ropes, that sequence alone. So there was an exchange in the middle of the ring, and then the gap opened up. Then there's a feint. There's a flicker upstairs to occupy the hands. And then there's my right hand that knocked him out. That sequence, the feint, the occupy, the right hand, that was drilled. Just that sequence alone was drilled probably hundreds and hundreds of times over weeks and weeks and weeks. And honestly, it's surreal to see that footage. And then I've got videos of when I was doing it with Ben, because he was obviously the video things to say, look, your foot was not quite right here. You need to make sure you're pushing him back there, because I don't want to give too much away in case I find him again. But
Yeah,
the
sure.
game plan was to push him back into them situations where we knew, make him more predictable. We knew what we were doing. It was more efficient, and because that sequence there, he's predictable to do this old style hand thing, where he tries to block with one hand, little occupier, boom. Um, it is almost like cheating. That's what I feel like being this. With being with Ben, and having the insights and information that I'm given and the things that I drill. It's the closest thing to having a time machine and cheating. Because if you can go back in time to see what happened, which you can't do, what you can do is look at previous footage, and that's pretty much what you're going to expect, because they do the same thing all the time. So
Sure.
if you've got that information, why aren't you using it? You know they're going to do that. So all you need to do is that. Drill it and practice it, because it's going to happen. It's going to present itself at some point in the fight. It is almost like having a time machine, but the opposite way around. And I don't know why a lot of other gyms and trainers aren't doing it. But look at my last 3 fights, it works.
And it must keep renewing your confidence in your relationship with your training team as well, to see the things you've drilled work effectively in fights.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Reese Mold fight, also I've been with Ben a number of weeks,
Mm.
6 weeks or something, and I was half-hearted. I was like, in my head, I'm like, I trust him. Like he was saying, like this switching here, right? None of that. Like that's detrimental. Like you're gonna get hurt. You're gonna get caught. You're up in the air. Yeah, they pull bits off the Dickens fight. Pull bits is absolutely. I'm like, fuck. I'm like, I'm not really that bad. Like they pull all these things all the time. But at the same time, it was the best thing that happened to me, because I can iron out all my defaults. Because other fighters, like I've just said, can look at them and say, well, when he does this, he does this. If he's in that situation, you do this. Now we've ironed them out. So when someone's looking at me and my footage now, there's less to go off. But at the same time, yeah, that Reese Mold fight, I've not been there that long, and I was like, I'm just gonna trust it. I didn't even know why to trust him. I just thought I'm just gonna trust him. I wanted to win this title since I was 10, 11 years old. I'm just gonna trust him and do it. And there was parts in that fight what I drilled with Ben that got me out of trouble. There's parts in that fight what won me the fight. And then I was like, yeah, do you know what? He was right. Like, I don't want to give too much away, but there's a
Sure.
moment when I was approaching the ropes, and I did this thing with Jordan. I just nullified what he was doing, and he had momentum at the time. And straight after that, the fight swung around, and I put some shots together and then dropped him. It seems so simple, but you don't know what you don't know. What Ben says all the time: if you don't know, you don't know. Um, so yeah, I'm just very thankful to where I'm at, and fight by fight, you get more confidence in your team because it works every time. So when you're given all these hours, blood, sweat, and tears, and you're tired of doing something over and over and over again, like I have been today, but it's going to pay off.
So do you and the team analyze your own tendencies and your own footage from previous performances as much as you do the opponents?
Yeah, so when I go back to the gym, we look at our previous fight, but it is more so looking forward to who you're fighting. I'll get my scouting report off Leigh, which can be anything from 30 minutes to 45 minutes long, and that'll pretty much have the bulk of it in, which we need to watch pretty much daily or every couple of days throughout the whole camp. And then we have other parts of sections off them bits that is identified, which we can drill and practice as well. Try not to give too much away, but it is ahead of a lot of other gyms. Um, I don't know what they're doing, but I know like I've been at other gyms with world champions there, and I've trained at other gyms with world champions there, and I've not seen anything like this before. And this is the biggest factor. This is my biggest advantage,
And
I feel.
do you drill also for if they come out and do something out of character? Because you might highlight all the tendencies and then they turn up on the night and they employ something different to confuse you. Thinking like Dillian White coming out southpaw against Fury, not the best example, effective,
Well,
but
exactly. I was just about to say, if they come out and do something they're not used to doing, they're not used to doing it.
mm.
So as soon as a little bit of pressure put on, they're gonna think, "Oh, should I do this?" Or they might make a mistake, like Dylan White. But yeah, it's not so much. you know exactly what they're going to do. Not you can make them do that. It's not always a bad thing what they do. We're not look like Leigh won't always look at things they do badly. It's things they do good as well. So if they know they do something good, do you know that that's going to happen? If you know what they're going to do at some point, you can use it and capitalize on it. It's not always what they do bad. It might not be dropping a hand, or it might not be stepping in, jumping in. It might not be getting pushed back too either. It might be something that they do well. But when you know they're going to do it at some point, you can capitalize on it.
Great stuff. Well, I hope you're able to do that on February 18th, just as effectively as you have the last few fights against Mauricio Lara. Mate, I really appreciate your time. Looking forward to the fight as well. And yeah, hopefully see you up there on fight week.
Looking, mate, and I'll see you soon. I can't wait to get back out there. I'm gonna look good in this fight, and in fact, I'm gonna look good in this fight. Counting down the days.
Great stuff. All right, mate. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.